Imagine standing right at this crossroads of faith and identity. And you're facing a question so stark it really demands an answer from your very soul.
That sounds intense.
It is. It's a question posed by a man deeply rooted in the community he's challenging. A question that sort of cuts through all the noise, right? Gets right to the heart of conviction. How did we begin by serving a man who hung naked on a cross, but end by serving Donald Trump?
Wow. Yeah, that's provocative. Definitely sets a tone.
Right. And that incredibly challenging line, it comes from the book MAGA Seduction, Resisting the Debasement of the Christian Conscience, written by Patrick Kahnke.
Okay.
And what makes Kahnke such a uniquely credible, maybe even uncomfortably potent voice here for us to analyze? Well, he isn't some outsider critic, lobbing accusations.
No, he's inside the tent.
Exactly. To his core, an insider, a retired evangelical pastor, lifelong Republican, dedicated pro-life activist. He speaks from the heart of the movement he's, scrutinizing.
Precisely. And as you're experiencing this analysis, just remember you are tuned into a unique two-host AI conversation powered by Google's NotebookLM. It's designed for a deeper, more dynamic exploration of this particular book.
Good point.
Our mission today really is to delve into how Kahnke, from his unique vantage point within the evangelical community, critically examines this complex intersection, Christian faith and political allegiance.
Yeah, it's messy territory.
It is, and we're going beyond just summarizing. We want to dissect his rhetorical strategies, understand how he tries to sway his community, explore the broader implications.
And importantly, we're focusing on the book's arguments, its effectiveness rhetorically.
Yeah.
We're not here to endorse or reject the viewpoints.
Exactly. It's about understanding the message, its potential impact, and how it was constructed.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Kahnke's background.
Yeah.
It's not just a side note, is it? It feels absolutely foundational to the weight and reception of his message.
Oh, complete.
What makes his standing so strategically crucial here?
It's everything, really. His unique position, his insider status, that's the bedrock of his whole argument.
Right.
By openly identifying as a retired evangelical pastor, lifelong Republican, pro-life activist, he immediately builds this powerful ethos, credibility, authority.
Right. He speaks their language.
He does. He's speaking from within the movement he's critiquing, and that makes it incredibly hard for his main audience to just dismiss him as like a liberal outsider or someone who doesn't get their values.
Yeah, you can't just write him off easily.
No, it grants him significant credibility by association. He shares their core identity. His pro-life stance, for example, aligns him with a fundamental evangelical value that gives him undeniable moral authority in their eyes.
And the fact he's willing to critique his own.
Exactly. That willingness, knowing the potential backlash, demonstrates what rhetoricians call sacrificial credibility. It suggests he's driven by principle, not politics. It elevates his moral standing.
And the timing of the book, its occasion, as we might call it, that's also critical, right? It wasn't written in hindsight.
No, not at all.
It came out just before the 2020 election, right in the thick of that fervent evangelical support for Donald Trump's presidency. How does that urgent context amplify things?
Well, that specific moment highlights the concept of kairos. It's about seizing the opportune time for a message to have maximum impact.
Right. The perfect moment.
Sort of. Kahnke wasn't just observing. He was actively trying to intervene, sounding an alarm, maybe, before what he saw as further spiritual damage to the Christian conscience.
And there's this prophetic quality people talk about with the book.
Yes, and that's fascinating. He wasn't just predicting, say, election results. He was envisioning a scenario where this unwavering loyalty to a political figure might lead his community to rationalize or defend actions they'd normally condemn.
A potential erosion of ethics.
Exactly, an erosion of a consistent ethical framework within evangelicalism. And many observers, looking back, felt later events kind of validated the spirit of his warnings, which retrospectively really enhanced his credibility as this sage voice.
So his primary audience seems to be evangelical Christians, maybe having some doubts, questioning their political alignment.
That's the core, yes.
But it feels like the message could resonate more broadly. Maybe other Christians or even secular observers worried about evangelicalism's direction.
You're right. There's definitely a layered audience. But Kahnke's deeper purpose, I think, goes beyond just electoral politics.
Okay.
He isn't just trying to change votes. He wants to preserve what he sees as an authentic Christian conscience against what he calls the false idol of Trumpism.
Strong language. False idol.
Very. For Kahnke, this isn't about policy debates. It's about spiritual integrity. He frames it as a theological and moral crisis.
Where core Christian values like truthfulness, humility, compassion might be getting compromised for political power.
That's precisely his argument, that they risk being debased. He wants to help his community reconnect with core gospel principles rather than seeing faith kind of co-opted by a political movement.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for our analysis. How does Kahnke, from that insider position, build such a challenging case? I mean, against something so deeply entrenched for many in his audience. What's his rhetorical playbook?
He definitely brings out the rhetorical big guns. He uses a sophisticated mix of appeals, ethos, pathos, and logos.
We've touched on ethos, his credibility. That opens the door.
Essential. It gets him a hearing. But let's dig into his use of pathos, the emotional appeal.
That opening question alone, juxtaposing the crucified Christ with Trump, that's incredibly potent emotionally, isn't it?
It creates immediate emotional tension and profound cognitive dissonance, that really uncomfortable feeling when you hold two conflicting ideas.
Yeah, it forces you to confront this stark contrast. Visually, theologically, it's unsettling.
Deeply unsettling for many evangelicals, I'd imagine. And furthermore, his consistent framing of the debasement of the Christian conscience, that functions as a powerful emotional trigger.
He's not just saying they're making bad political choices.
No, he's suggesting something sacred, something core to their spiritual identity, is being violated. This taps into deep-seated concerns about spiritual purity, moral integrity.
And calling Trumpism a false idol.
That powerfully evokes biblical stories of idolatry, the ultimate spiritual betrayal, right? It triggers these profound fears of spiritual apostasy, of falling away from core beliefs. That resonates deeply within the evangelical consciousness.
So he's leveraging his credibility, stirring these deep emotions. What about the logic? How does he build a rational case for such a, dramatic shift in allegiance?
His logos, the logical appeal, follows a really clear and compelling problem-solution-consequence pattern.
Okay, walk us through that.
First, the problem. Kahnke meticulously details how he sees evangelical support for Trump contradicting fundamental Christian values. He might argue, for instance, that biblical calls for humility or truthfulness clash with certain political actions or rhetoric. He presents this fundamental disconnect,
creating a spiritual inconsistency.
Exactly. Then, the solution he proposes is unequivocal. Christians must reject our association with what he sees as this corrupting influence.
And the consequences if they don't.
He doesn't shy away from those. He lays out stark consequences. Continued association, in his view, leads to significant spiritual damage, conscience degradation, ultimately harming individual believers and the church's witness.
And this logic isn't just philosophical.
No, it's robustly supported by theological reasoning, scripture, Christian tradition. And like we said, that later prophetic validation, where some general predictions seem to play out, served as kind of further evidence for his broader thesis about spiritual compromise. It added a layer of maybe empirical weight to his theological arguments.
So thinking about the type of book this is, what genre does it fit into? How does classifying it help us understand its message and impact?
It operates very clearly within the tradition of prophetic literature. It's a genre that historically challenges the faithful to return to authentic religious practice.
So it's not just social commentary. It carries a spiritual weight.
Absolutely. This kind of literature typically has a strong sense of moral urgency. Critical decisions need to be made now. The spiritual stakes are high. It relies heavily on insider authority, which Kahnke embodies perfectly.
Allows him to speak with that intimate knowledge.
Right. It's grounded in a robust theological framework, arguments rooted in religious texts, not just politics. And crucially, it includes prophetic warning, detailing the grave spiritual consequences of straying from core principles.
And Kahnke positions himself as a reluctant prophet.
Yes, skillfully. Not as a political pundit, but as someone compelled by conscience and scripture to speak difficult truths to his own community. He's not framed as seeking personal gain, but spiritual restoration for them.
Makes sense.
And just a quick note here for more insightful analyses like this one, remember to check out Mindful Moments. That's our YouTube channel offering AI book analysis, summaries, and critiques. It's all designed to inspire reflection and rational thought.
Good reminder. So, thinking about its overall rhetorical effectiveness, what were the biggest strengths of Kahnke's argument? What really made his case compelling, at least for those willing to listen?
Well, the strengths are numerous and interconnected, I think. First, Kahnke's status as a credible messenger that just made his critiques so much harder to dismiss. It opened doors.
Doors closed to outsiders.
Exactly. Then his prophetic accuracy, the fact that subsequent events seemed to validate the spirit of his warnings about ethical erosion that powerfully enhanced his retrospective credibility, made people maybe revisit his words.
Interesting point.
The deep theological grounding was also key. He framed political critique in terms familiar and resonant to his audience. He spoke their spiritual language.
And the emotional side.
And his deep emotional resonance, appealing to core spiritual integrity, tapped into foundational evangelical concerns in this profound, almost visceral way. He presented it not just as a political disagreement, but a spiritual crisis.
But, every powerful argument, especially one challenging deep loyalties, faces limitations. What were some potential obstacles or challenges Kahnke's book encountered?
A primary one was undoubtedly audience receptivity. I mean, for evangelicals already deeply committed to Trump, Kahnke's message, regardless of his credentials, might have just been rejected outright, maybe even seen as a betrayal.
It's hard to change beliefs tied up with identity.
Incredibly hard. There were also maybe some timing challenges. While prophetically accurate in its broad warnings, being written before the 2020 election meant some arguments might have felt less immediate or fully formed to readers later on.
And the personal cost.
Yes, and perhaps most painfully for Kahnke himself, there's the community cost of an insider critique like this. Challenging your community from within, especially on such a sensitive topic, it can lead to the author's marginalization, pushed out from the very circles he wanted to influence.
And stuff.
However, despite those limitations, the book really maintains a significant lasting relevance. Kahnke wasn't just reacting to a moment. He successfully identified these enduring tensions, these deep structural challenges within American evangelicalism that are still playing out.
So it's bigger than just one election cycle?
Much bigger. His central achievement, I think, lies in reframing political critique not as a partisan attack, but as a spiritual imperative. He provides this compelling model for how religious insiders can challenge their own communities while keeping theological authority and pastoral concern. It forces tough questions about faith, identity, and politics.
As we wrap up this deep dive into Kahnke's really powerful work, I want to leave you, the listener, with this provocative thought. In a world just saturated with information, with incredibly strong political loyalties, how do we as individuals discern and apply spiritual principles to our civic engagement without compromising our core values, without sacrificing that authentic conscience Kahnke talks about?
That's such a vital question for our times, isn't it? We really encourage you to engage with these challenging ideas, to question your own assumptions maybe, and to think rationally about the complex, often messy interplay of faith and public life.
It's about seeking deeper understanding, intellectual rigor.
Right. Not just easy answers or, convenient affirmations.
For more intellectually demanding content, unique AI book analysis, summaries, critiques, remember to check out Mindful Moments and our podcasts.
Please do.
So please, click the link on screen for the in-depth book summary, subscribe to our channel, share this analysis with others who might find it valuable, purchase the book via our link if you're interested. It supports independent thought. And above all, continue to think rationally.